Podcast here on CHCH. I'm Bubba O'Neil. Well, as the trend continues, this podcast shines the spotlight on athletes, coaches, and executives that hail, reside, or are making their presence known in Southern Ontario. Today, it's a double shot from the Golden Horseshoe as we speak to a broadcaster about a team that's on the verge of greatness once again. Well, he's among Burlington's best, whose soccer skills and knowledge grew roots at MM Robinson and was realized as a national champion on the pitch at Western University. As a broadcaster, his passion for soccer landed Gareth Wheeler outstanding assignments and opportunities such as coverage of the World Cup, Olympics, and Euro Championships at TSN Radio, TSN, and currently OneSoccer. Today, Gareth joins us with a breakdown of the Super Bowl of soccer in this country as Forge FC and Cavalry FC do battle for the Canadian Premier League's North Star Cup on the fields of Spruce Meadows in Calgary. There's my man talking soccer. Great to see you there, Gareth.
Yeah, it's great to be here in Calgary. I haven't been out here since the 2019 final, where it was a home and away tie, so it wasn't just a one-off, the Super Bowl of Canadian soccer, and Forge managed to win that game 1-0. It could have gone either way, so it's good to be back. And when these two sides meet, it's always competitive, always thrilling down to the end. And I think that over the course of this podcast, we'll probably reflect a little bit upon what happened last year and one of the best finals to a sporting event that you will ever see. And it happened right in Hamilton, Ontario, the Canadian Premier League. So this game this weekend has a lot to live up to based upon the way that last year played out.
All kinds of history between these teams and rivalries, if we can call them, maybe the two best clubs coming up through the CPL over its 6-year existence. But before we get to that, let's go back to last night. Forge FC midfielder Tristan Borges named CPL Player of the Year. Quasi Poco, no surprise, the 2024 CPL Best Canadian Under-21 player. Bobby Smirnitis, well, named Coach of the Year. What took so long, Gareth?
I blame the fellow voters because Bobby had my vote time and time again, and I don't think that he even needed me to campaign for him. I just wish that maybe they trolled him a little bit at the awards ceremony, did like a Steve Harvey situation, gave it to someone else, be like, no, it's Bobby Smirnitis, because it's absurd that he hasn't been in that, has won the award up until last night, because he has been the standard bearer in terms of head coaches in the Canadian Premier League. We're 6 years in. He's grown each and every year. His side's just perennially a top team. He makes young players better, and he's moved on so many young players to have opportunity within the Canadian men's national team and beyond. So the work that he and the crew have done at Forge is exemplary, and it's funny, even when he's getting the award last night, you know it means something to him, Bubs, but really the title that he wants to win is on Saturday. It's not about the individual accolades. I know it sounds cliche, and sometimes you're like, you want your flowers as an individual, but this is very much about the team. And same thing goes, like Tristan Borges wins the MVP. Could have been Captain Kyle Becker. Like, take your pick. Alexander Ashinodi-Johnson, Alessandro Hujabrapor. Like, I just feel like this is a team that's a collection, and just the sum of the parts is something special. Yes, there's special individuals, but it's all about team when it comes to Forge, and that's why they're back at a 6th consecutive Canadian Premier League final this weekend.
And you take a look at the Forge squad, every year somewhat different, and last year's squad was maybe a little bit more of a senior squad. Coach Smirnitis made the appropriate changes this year. Players like Quasi Poco made the move from the back line up top, and then was a huge success. I look at a player like, to me, and we'll talk about him here later, like Noah Jensen coming out of nowhere, and he's been with the program. But so he builds this program, and it continues despite different challenges every year, and it ends up at the same place almost every year.
Well, yeah, that's it. And you might say to yourself, if you watch this competition, if you watch the Canadian Premier League, it's Cavalry Forge again. What's going on with the rest of the teams? But the thing that those two teams do better than anyone else is bring young players through the program. They're not immediately thrust into the spotlight or positions where they might be set up to fail. These players that are brought along with method and purpose. Like Quasi Poku is a perfect example. Very young player, third year in the league this year, started the season with an injury, but it was a player that came off at halftime of the final last year, and the behind-the-scenes footage shared by the Canadian Premier League and Forge of like him in tears, it was tough to watch for a very young player. But what did he do? He came out, even a better version of himself this season, having that experience behind him, changed his position, started leading the line. And for me, Kwesi Poku was the best story in the Canadian Premier League this season. A player that emerged as a top striker in this league, has gone on to get an opportunity to play in Europe, in Belgium, and beyond that, gets a call to the Canadian men's national team last month and gets onto the field as well in their game against Panama. Like, these are the success stories that are happening that go above and beyond who wins the North Star Cup on the weekend. It's the program and the opportunity that Bobby Smirniotis and company continue to lay out, and the way they bring along players. It's exactly what soccer or football in this country needs and requires.
Regular season, Forge win the season series, 2 victories out of 4 matches. In the what I'm calling the Page playoff system at Tim Hortons Field just a couple of weeks ago, Cavalry win 1-0, forcing the Hammers to play that second must-win game against Atletico Ottawa, which I don't know if they played their very best, but yet still pulled out a 1-0 victory. I got to ask you right now, are Forge vulnerable right now?
It's hard to say they're ever vulnerable, but I do think there's more questions around this team than have existed in previous years. Yeah, Forge came into last weekend's game, the all-important do-or-die match against Atletico Ottawa, losing 3 straight games in a row after they lifted the Canadian Premier League shield as regular season winners. And a couple things happened. Top left back on their side in their team, Daniel Parra, was suspended for 3 games. He comes back this weekend. Garvin Matusala, top center back, went out through injury, was unavailable to play. Tristan Borges didn't see the field after rolling his ankle in training last week. After losing Poku, after giving him the opportunity to go away to Belgium, they haven't really had that answer, that true striker, that number 9 that they can rely upon. So they're playing some different formations. And that was the first time I saw Bobby Smirniotis' side really kind of play on the back foot, ride their luck to a certain degree. I think they were comfortable throughout, Bubs. I think they deserved to win that game, but it wasn't typically how they go out and play. So I think entering this final, the question is, what kind of Forge team do we see on the field? And I think there is actually some selection choices, decisions to make for Bobby Smirniotis, like who is in the 11, who's fit enough to play, how do you get balance, and how do you try to flip the script from that 1-0 loss to Cavalry just a couple weeks ago? I just want to point out, like, how close these two sides play one another. They played 31 games all time against one another, and only ever once, just one time, has a game been settled by more than a goal. It's always 1-0, 2-1, 1-1, 0-0. That's just remarkable, like how close these games are each and every time. And honestly, Bubs, like we're kind of approaching this game. It's a little bit of a coin flip who should be considered favorite. So I'm expecting another thrilling, competitive match come Saturday.
Look at the form of both clubs right now, and I think, and again, in a one-game, as he's called it, the Super Bowl of the CPL, one-match playoff, anything can happen, as we do know that, as opposed to its former system for the championship match, where you played the 2-leg system. Yeah. But you look at the form right now of Cavalry right now. They have, I mean, there was a section of the season where they just, I believe they went 5 undefeated, 15 straight points. They kind of they had a lot of ties to start the season, and they put themselves in a situation right now where they are playing maybe the best football of both teams right now.
The Cavalry have only lost once in their last 14 or 15 games. It's been a remarkable run. You almost went back after the season ended, and you start looking at the numbers. They only lost 4 games. 4 games all season. I was doing interviews with their head coach, Tommy Wheeldon Jr., on our OneSoccer coverage, asking him, do you think your team's good enough to make the playoffs? Like, I was legitimately asking those questions. And now they only finished 2 points back at Forge and came into Tim Hortons Field and beat them. They have some informed players, and they got healthy at the right time. That's a recipe, Bubs. You've seen it in the Stanley Cup playoffs, in the NBA. Like, sometimes the stars just need to line up for you. So they're number 9, their striker, Tobias Warshevsky, is a Golden Boot winner. They have Ali Musi. They have John Herdman's son, Jay Herdman, who's playing on the left-hand side and has provided balance to the team. And the best defender in the Canadian Premier League, a player named Dan Klomp at center back. Like, this is a really good team, but they need to kind of exercise those demons. Like, last year, Cavalry came into Tim Hortons Field and outplayed Forge for 90-plus minutes. They went into extra time. They took the lead, and they almost, like, ran out of gas. And Forge stole that one in the end. And just seeing the reaction on the faces of the Cavalry coaching staff and players, like, they were in disbelief as to what happened. that collective memory, is it going to benefit them heading into this game, or may it be a little bit of an anchor, understanding the past against Forge where the games matter the most? I think that's going to be kind of decisive in the way that this thing goes. These teams are that tightly matched that the margins are so thin here, Bubs.
I listened to an interview this week with Tommy Wheeler talking, and he talked about the fact that his approach is that, and his team's approach is that what Forge have done is wonderful, amazing. It's been outstanding for the CPL. Yep. But what they've done is history, and now they have an opportunity to make this there, finally step forward. Because, I mean, there was a year that they did win the league, as it was last year, and did not win the final trophy. Is there something between the two managers with Bobby Smirnitis and Tommy Wheeler Jr.? Is there something between the two? Or is it just a matter that one manager has something that the other doesn't have?
I think that there's something there between these managers. There has to be. They followed similar trajectories. They came in at the same time. Their approaches are a little bit different, but I think they push one another, which is a good thing. To your point about Tommy Wheeler Jr., I mean, this is the missing link. This is something that he hasn't won, and I feel like he can kind of shed that stigma that they're the team that just can't finish in the end if they go out and do this at home tomorrow in front of a sold-out crowd. Like, this is a big show-me day for Tommy Wheeler Jr., and I don't know if you remember this, but at last year's final on Media Day, Tommy Wheeler Jr. came out and said that the game was a bonus for Cavalry. And I jumped on it right away. We had a back and forth, and he continued it into our pre-match show because he believed that the most important thing was winning the regular season, much like winning the Premier League in England or La Liga in Spain. That's where his priority was. But I was like, bonus, this is a cup final. This is a big deal. And something tells me he's not going to say that today. Like, it's going to be way different this time around because the pressure is on. His team needs to perform, and he wants to just shed that label as a team that's good but not quite good enough. And looking at his counterpart of Bobby Smirnitis being the most decorated manager in the league, like, that has to bother him. It has to, Bob. No matter how much you respect someone, you being compared to that individual and that guy having a step up on you, that's something that just doesn't sit right. So there definitely is a storyline there, and I can't wait to dig into it a little bit more as we approach kickoff.
Well, in any type of final or championship situation, we ask this question all the time, so I'll ask you the X factor. I mean, I look at Noah Jensen. To me, he's a guy that has come on so nicely in the second half of the season, and boy, he just seems to be able to hit the ball well from outside of distance, and has that confidence. And you talked about the fact that, right now, Forge are struggling at the number 9. They don't have a true striker right now. So to me, Jensen could be that guy that gets up a key goal. Who would be an X factor for you in this match?
It's interesting you say Jensen because this was a player was a surprise to a lot of people. He started the 2022 final when Kyle Becker was out and unavailable, and he was excellent in that game. So his role and his prominence in the team has grown. I think he scored 3 of the last 7 goals that Forge has scored heading into this final, so he's definitely a factor. My X factor is what Bobby Smirnitis does on the left-hand side of the field. Because last time that they played Cavalry with Daniel Parra, the left back, suspended, they just lacked a little bit of, I think they got outplayed down that left side of the field. Benny Badabanga just didn't have the time and space. He was double teamed by Fraser Aird and Ali Musi. It didn't work as smoothly as it did all season. I think how to use Daniel Parra is the big question. And Badabanga played down the right last week against Atletico Ottawa. I would put both those two players on the same side of the field and let them combine and connect, because that's where they're going to be able to generate all their chances from. Because those two players going forward, they're excellent players. They're technically sound. They're a pain to defend. I think that's how you push back Cavalry and make them play on the back foot. So that's going to be mine, just the way that Parra is used. Remember, he hasn't played in 3 weeks because he's been suspended as well. So what that means for his fitness and form, that's going to be critical again. And also dealing with the conditions. Forge has had a home field advantage in those recent finals, right? The great crowds at Tim Hortons Field, Now you're on grass. It's November in Cavalry. The field, in fairness, looks pretty good. And talking to some of the Forge players, they say it's the best that they've seen in a long time. So hopefully the conditions are proper, and we just get a game where two teams are willing to, go at one another, head to head, 1v1, and give, lay it all out there. No defending, no sitting back, no parking the bus. I just want a proper Cup final. And if so, then it's going to be a big deal to watch on OneSoccer and CBC this weekend. Should be outstanding.
You led me to my final question here, because we're so used to seeing Forge play important matches, whether it be any type of cup that they're playing for. With the atmosphere at Tim Hortons Field, what's it like at Spruce Meadows, Atco Field? Is it a little bit different? I love the look at the old stadium. It gives me that sort of, Division II, English Premier, England League Championship League sort of stadium. There's a real nice feel to it.
It is. It's very old school. It's very intimate across the two sides of the field. I believe they're bringing in some extra seats as well. I got to confirm on that, but it's going to look good because it's just a much more intimate venue. So they're one of two teams in the CPL that have grass fields. So the flow of the game will look a little bit different as well. Sometimes on turf, the game's played a little bit faster. Here, I think it rewards more technical players, and both sides have a lot of really good technical players. So the way that you'll watch it and experience it will be a little bit different. It should be loud. Again, tickets are sold out. It's out here in Spruce Meadows, which is way outside Calgary proper. I feel like I'm it's just stone's throw away from the Rocky Mountains here. So much great history here. It's a wild place, and it's going to kind of have that tailgate feel, like going down to a Bills game vibe. Obviously, nothing can compare to that, but that kind of vibe, just getting out, should be a little bit of a party scene here tomorrow.
All right, I just need to step out of this. Step out of our box here for one little second here. Of course,
God, don't do this.
On Tuesday. Tuesday, my phone is going off. All right, I'm getting beaten down by City haters, right? And I'm getting text by something called Amrin Ball. Okay. Now, as we all know, Ruben Amrin he's now made the move to Manchester United, and of course, City United. There's a wonderful rivalry that stretches back many years. Well, okay, and it kind of bothered me a little bit because I'm saying there, well, you know what? The City are kind of looking at a drive for 5, and I know we're in some troubled times right now. But I look at where United is right now, and nothing's happening this year. There'll be no trophies for United this year. But is there hope? Do you like the hiring of this manager for Manchester United?
When Sporting demolished City, which Emery, by the way, said it was a little bit lucky on Tuesday, my first thought was, well, can he bring his whole squad over with him as well? Not just the manager, because I mean, it's a little bit like, moving around the deck chairs on the Titanic when it comes to Manchester United. I thought they made some good hires with other managers in the past, but you come to this club and the pressure that comes along with it, and the perennial years of mismanagement and poor spending and poor squad structure and the lack of identity, it just leaves Ruben with a lot of work to do. Am I hopeful? Sure. I've been hopeful for all these new managers, Bubs, post Sir Alex, over the last decade. Of course, I'm hopeful, but my expectation, the bar continues to get lower, okay? So much so I can just step over it now. Like that, that's kind of the requirements at this time. So if I'm City, I'm not worried. I mean, that City are fine. They're going to be fine. It's just losing Rodri, the Ballon d'Or winner in the middle of the park. I mean, the record with and without him, it's just, those stats don't lie. So City are still going to be a top side. They're going to go all the way to the end of the season. They'll be in the mix to win the Premier League, the Champions League. They'll be right there. But there's a little bit of a dip in form for City. As a scorned United supporter, I don't mind seeing it whatsoever. So apologies to your phone right now, Bubs, but I hope this continues at least for a few more weeks.
Well, I won't put you in the Mark Goldbridge sort of category.
No.
It is so over the top. Stop it! It's killing me. Hey, set us up for Saturday. Big match. OneSoccer and CBC combined.
Yeah, so at 3 p.m. Eastern time, we come on air with our CBC pre-match show. But if you want to watch a little bit more of Forge in the build-up to the game, it should be a great environment, great atmosphere. We get underway at 2 p.m. Eastern time on OneSoccer. We take you through kickoff. There's performances by musical artists. It's going to be a big production on the weekend, and pre-match and post-match coverage live on CBC as well. A good build-in to Hockey Night in Canada as well. So it's a big day for the league to celebrate everything that's being built now in Canadian soccer, and we see the two best teams once again in the Canadian Premier League do battle as well. So I'll be hanging out with Andy Petrillo and Jordan Wilson and Christian Jack and our entire crew here at ATCO Field in Calgary, Spruce Meadows. It should be great. And the weather, I think it's going to be about 6-7 degrees. I brought my winter boots just in case, Bubs, because you never know how to pack when you're coming to Calgary, but everything looks like it's lining up to be just a real special day for Canadian sport and the Canadian Premier League.
Top-notch build-up to what should be a wonderful match. Gareth Wheeler, thank you so much for your time. Certainly look forward to your analysis on OneSoccer and CBC. Enjoy the broadcast. Enjoy the championship experience.
Bubs, enjoy it. You're the best. And shout out to the Barton Street Battalion. I know they're going to be a great voice watching the game back at home, and they're just hoping for another celebration at Tim Hortons Field sometime next week. So best of luck to you and all the Hamilton Forge fans out there.
Thanks, my man. Take care. Well, that's your Sportsline Podcast for the day. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote the Sportsline Podcast, do want to hear from you. Please hit the like and subscribe button. If you have something to say, we love it when you comment. While you're at it, we'd love you to check out all of our content and podcasts like Trending Now with Louis V on our brand new CHCH website. For the brilliant people that make the Sportsline Podcast possible, thank you so very much, and we'll see you very soon.